All right, welcome back to another episode of Pixelated Audio. We're your hosts. I'm Bryan, this is Gene, and we are surrounded by a lovely group of friends tonight. This is a very special episode because most of the time, Gene and I are sitting in a room and we might have a guest on who is remote. Not a lot of times we get 3 people or more in a room, and today we are joined by 7 people. We got 7 people here today. I guess we'll just go around in a circle here.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm Gene's wife.
I'm Myla. I am Ed's wife from VGMBassy.
You had to think about that one.
Thanks for remembering my podcast name, dear.
I was going to say the other one.
You're going to say PTR?
Yeah.
Hi, I am Ed from the VGMBassy and Impulse Project. So glad to be here.
I am Emily Donnelly, aka Keyglyph of Sound Test Roulette and formerly of the VGM Jukebox.
And I'm Logan, that is the special guest in the VGMBassy.
All right.
All right. And Logan is Ed's son, so we're very fortunate to have him as well. It's pretty late at night, and we just
pajama party.
It's like
actually.
10 o'clock.
It's a pajama party. Yeah, we did some sightseeing today in DC since we're headed back tomorrow, and we ended up walking like 12 hours around
10 miles
About
worth
10
of
miles.
walking.
Ten
Across the
miles.
Capitol Mall twice.
Yeah, so even though we're exhausted and about ready to pass out, we decided, you know what, we're going to record something, we're going to get together and play a few tracks, and we kind of all picked them last minute, or at least I did. I just picked, in fact, Ed picked mine for me. You have to pick a number 1 through 3, and that's what you guys ended up with today. So, first of all, that track that brought us in, I guess we should start with that.
What'd you pick, Logan?
World 1, Map 1 from Yoshi's Crafted World.
Awesome, and that was composed by Kazufumi Umeda. What'd you like about this song, Logie?
I just like Yoshi's.
Yeah, I know you like Yoshi's. Have you been having a lot of fun with Crafted World? Mm-hmm. When'd you get it? About a week ago or so when it came out?
Well, you got it for me.
I know. And, well, you were a big fan of Yoshi's Woolly World, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's the difference between Crafted World and Woolly World?
Well, in Woolly World, the Yoshis are yarn or wool. And in Crafted World, they're just normal Yoshis.
Oh, okay. But is the whole world yarn like in Woolly World?
No.
No. So what's different about that?
It's cardboard, and I don't really know if there's anything else.
Lots of crafty stuff. So there's like
Yeah.
buttons and straws, and all the world is made out of different things you might find around the house, right?
Yeah.
So I played Woolly World, but I haven't played the Crafted World one. Is it pretty good?
It's cool. But it uses an extra like 2.5 dimensions, so you can go into the background, you can flip the world around. So it's like a side scroller, but you can change the camera around so you can see what's in the foreground.
Kind of like the Lobo or the Labo thing that Nintendo's doing. Is that what it's
Labo.
based on?
Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't use the Labo stuff, but it does. How do I explain it? It's like
Like Paper Mario, but like
kind of, yeah.
Cardboard?
But, so it's like a normal like action platforming game, but you can go into the background, kind of like Guardian Heroes kind of a deal. There's like multiple planes,
okay.
but then you can also. The camera will rotate itself. So you might see like a building in the foreground, like in front of the Yoshis as they're going through the world, but then you step on a switch and then the camera rotates 180 degrees and that building is now in the background.
No.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, I think I'm wrong.
No.
What?
Let the experts speak.
There's all the maps, if you beat them, there's another challenge that like makes you have to go on the flip side to find the Poochie Pups.
I see.
the
So you play the
that
whole level in
sounded
reverse.
adorable.
Well, that track
And
was adorable.
they're basically yarn balls, but they come back to you.
I see. Like boomerang things that you can throw, right?
Yeah.
So why did you pick this track?
I told you, because I like Yoshis.
That's totally valid. That's totally valid.
What I like about this track is it brings that Yoshi theme back, and I don't know when that was established, but I first heard it in Yoshi's story. The ba 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 ba. So there's a little bit of a spin on that in here, and I think that's pretty cute.
Dun, 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 da, 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 da. I had to keep going with that. Like, you couldn't stop.
You gotta finish the phrase, you know?
Otherwise, it's going to be stuck in your head for the entire day.
Okay, you can stop.
I'm done. I finished the phrase.
All right, should we keep it rolling? Who's next? Thank you, Logan. That was awesome.
Oh, actually, before we go on,
Oh.
Can I just raise a glass to Rhythm and Pixels, who were also with us yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Actually, we should
And
pour one
Chris
out
Murray,
for him.
yes,
You're
Chris
next.
Murray, Just a Punk, who is also spending time with us. We had a lovely time. I am
know.
almost done with my water, so I'll just
Yeah,
Your
this,
water
We'll
now
miss you,
into
Greg.
me.
this
Your
is the
water
first time that many
Sorry.
of us podcasters are meeting in person for the first time. I know Bryan and I had never met Ed or Emily or really anybody who's here. And Rhythm and Pixels guys, Rob and Pernell.
I feel like we made some new friends.
made some
It's
new
awesome.
friends, yeah.
Literally from all over the country, like
Yeah.
East Coast to extreme West Coast. Just really, really cool.
It was really humbling to see so many people come to hear us talk. We were only there for 30, 40 minutes, but, it was really made us feel very special.
It's a very expensive 30
And-
minutes for me, but thank you.
It just goes to show how awesome the community is that we can all get together. It wasn't really about the talk. It was more about just us being able to have this opportunity to actually meet up. And even though a lot of what we share in common is game audio and just the love of it, that's all it takes, for us to be able to get together and have fun and act like we've known it. I mean, it feels like we've known each other all for a really long time. And this doesn't feel like the first time we met.
No,
Right,
not at all.
And I can't really say that about a lot of other people, like I know other people online or, long distance. I have even cousins that is more awkward when I meet them for the first time. That's very awkward. So this is a really cool group of people, and I'm really happy to be part of it.
That's funny
So-
that you say that too, because there's this one group picture of us in the kitchen that I love that actually looks like we just finished Thanksgiving dinner and we're taking a family photo. It so looks like a family photo.
That
It's
might
great.
be the artwork for this episode. We might have to use that.
Awesome.
Oh, it's so nice.
yeah.
Put a little fake frame around it so it looks like it's framed on somebody's
Like a really
piano or
old
something.
style frame,
Exactly.
like the gold doilies
exactly.
or whatever.
Yes, perfect.
Put some cranberry sauce on Emily's face.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly.
Cranberry sauce.
Awesome. So I guess let's keep it rolling. Who's next?
Next up is Myla.
I chose Yoshi's Woolly World. We decided to do track 1 from the first world. And this is a game that Logan and I played at least 2 times through. We still have yet to get to 100% on either of those levels. I mean, game saves. And it's just something that we really enjoyed playing together. And it's a song that gets stuck in your head.
All right, this was composed by Tomoyo Tomita, Misaki Asada, and Kazumi Totaka.
That was Yarn Yoshi Take Shape from Yoshi's Woolly World.
And the composers on that were Tomoyo Tomita, Misaki Asada, and Kazumi Totaka.
We're all looking at each other like, who's gonna talk first?
I mean, it's your track.
Yeah. So why'd you pick the track?
as I led into the song, it is a game that Logan and I really enjoy playing together. We have a lot of fun memories playing, and a lot of laughter happened since we play co-op.
How old was Logan when you started?
Oh, gosh.
I think it was
I think you were 5.
5.
Wow, so you guys have been doing this for a long time.
We have been playing
This is quite a
2
tradition.
years.
So wait, was this? I can't remember. I played this one, but I can't remember
Yeah.
if it was Wii or Wii U.
Wii U.
WiiU.
It's on the
Wii
Wii
U.
U.
Okay, yeah.
So Logan would usually use the screen,
The gamepad.
the gamepad, thank you. And I would use the regular
I couldn't
controller.
control the screen.
No, you can't control the screen. That's ridiculous.
So I remember that Logan was really good with 3D. He was kind of backwards from like how we grew up, because we grew up on 2D, and then when
Right.
we had to get used to like Crash Bandicoot and all the 3D games, like we would there was a learning curve there.
Yeah.
So he was really really good at the 3D games, but then when we got like Mario Maker and he wanted to play that, he had no idea what to do on a 2D plane. So he got
2D
really
plane?
two-dimensional game like Super Mario Brothers instead of
You
like
can only go
Mario.
left and right instead of being
Yeah.
able to go all over the place.
Yeah, there's no depth.
What's funny about that is, you know,
Yeah, there's
we obviously
depth, you just can't go
Right.
toward the screen and
Isn't it strange that we actually have to
Backward.
explain that, like what that means? that right there is the odd part.
Yeah,
What's weird
exactly.
to me is thinking about how obviously the world is in 3D, and we grew up as kids playing in 2D, and then when we have to do virtual 3D, we're like, what? I don't
whoa.
understand. It's like I've never done this before.
The whole extra access.
I?
So, anyways, playing Woolly World really helped him hone his two-dimensional gameplay skills. So now when he plays Mario Maker or another Mario game, he's much better because he understands how characters work in 2 dimensions. So it was neat to see him kind
Boing.
of expand his gameplay horizons into 2D, which is like so backwards from all of us.
That's awesome. It's good. It's good that you have a memory. So I have 2 kids, and they aren't yet starting to play games, but that right there is something that I'm looking forward to experience. Being able to share
yeah.
that with them, and then look back several years and be like, that was a great memory I had with my kids. Not just a
Yeah.
game that I played and I have a good memory with. You know,
Right, right.
combining those
Absolutely.
2 things seems like such a special moment. So awesome.
Yeah, and Eddie and I used to play Katamari together, and that was one of the first games he started with, and I think he was 4.
Yeah, that's the game we started him with
That's
because of
what
the
we
dual
started him
analog
with
sticks.
because
yeah.
it was easy for him to use the dual analog over trying to give him a regular controller, and that was a lot of fun for us too.
Eddie being the elder child and not
Oh,
Ed
right.
of
Not
VGMBassy.
No.
There's a lot of confusion going on here.
What's your favorite part about Yoshi's Woolly World, Logan?
Everything.
Everything.
Well, there you have it.
All right.
Perfect. The perfect game.
And that's the final word, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so who's next on the list?
That would be me. I guess we're going for the Wilson Triumvirate
Wow,
to
yeah.
lead off
Turkey.
the episode.
It's a turkey.
I'm going to take this show in a very different direction right now. We're going to play a track called Isabella, Leader of the Resistance, from a game called Freedom Fighters by Jesper Kid. All right, that was Isabella, leader of the resistance from Freedom Fighters by Jesper Kid, or Jesper Kide, as you pronounce it.
I guess that's how... I've heard him say it once in an interview, and I just roll with it.
All right, fair enough. So I originally decided to pick a track for the show that had kind of like an American history aspect to it, since we are in Washington, D.C.
Right.
Like it kind of, I always try to use some sort of limitation on whenever there's a free pick, because it just helps me narrow the tracks down from a bank of 4 million VGM songs. So yeah, Freedom Fighters is a game about. So it's an alternate history game. So what happens is the Soviets drop a bomb, an atomic bomb on Germany during World War II. So they're the ones who come out on top of World War II, and they become kind of a world power.
Right.
So they start taking over all the European nations and eventually gain enough power to start taking over, like, North America, Canada. So you play as a resistance fighter against the Soviet Union in Brooklyn. So it's a really cool kind of America fights back against quote-unquote evil, so which I really found kind of maybe fit.
I have
Yes,
a
Emily.
question.
Absolutely.
I'm raising my hand here. Are you, because this is the second track that you've played with this musical style that is an alternate history game. I'm thinking of Mother Russia Bleeds.
Oh yeah, huh.
So I'm just interested, like, is that sort of a plot setting setup that was really popular at a certain point, or do you think that maybe the music to that just happens to always kind of be your style, or are you into that?
Well, Mother Russia Bleeds is a relatively new game, and this one came out in 2003. But
okay.
I will say that alternate history science fiction is one of my favorite genres.
Aha!
So that's
I was
kind of what
going
draws
to
me to it.
I can see
Pull that
that.
into the conversation.
And I love Jesper Kai's music. I mean, you guys on Pixelated Audio did a show, it was like episode 4 or something.
Like 4 years ago, too. 5 years ago, almost.
And that was probably my favorite episode at the time, because I love his old Genesis music so much. And I didn't really listen to much of his newer stuff because he kind of got away from that whole industrial, grindy groove. But this soundtrack really sang to me because it combines a lot of like the orchestral and symphonic Assassin's Creed stuff, but has that kind of underlying tone of all that gritty Genesis music that he used to do.
Right. And I think there was an interview that I saw where he had said, his early stuff had that grunginess to it, but it didn't really matter what the system was. It didn't matter what the platform was, or the sound chip or anything. That was like his style, and he tried to recreate that same sound on all sorts of hardware.
Right.
And there was that period, though, like you were saying, like that it was kind of lost. Like I think it was around the Borderlands, maybe the early Borderlands. He kind of got back to it in that game, but it was right before that where it kind of got a little bit more atmospheric. And it didn't really stick to that Jesper Kite that we know from the Genesis.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is maybe what the studios were asking from him.
Totally,
he was trying to make a name for himself as a AAA, big budget title composer.
And probably trying to make money too.
Right. And but then once your resume gets built up enough, you can start getting a little more creative freedom, and so he was able to go back to the style that was, his bread and butter.
Or to me, it almost sounds like he started in point A, got inspired. Like if you listen to the discography of any musicians, they'll be influenced and they'll change, and then at some point they'll hit a point C where they're incorporating both into one, so they pick what they like of both.
That's a good point.
Right. Yeah, and this is that cross between the two. I mean, so he used the Hungarian radio choir in a whole bunch of tracks. And the other cool thing is that while we were here in DC, we listened to Winifred Phillips. She just did an amazing talk today at the Library of Congress about dynamic music in video games and how it's composed. And she has a lot of experience with that under her belt. This game uses dynamic music. So we just kind of learned about that. And then this is a retail release of the music that's in the game. So this is kind of like, a sequence that Jesper Kide put together for the retail release.
Right.
But you can tell that there are like 3 different movements. There's that very, very calm kind of symphonic part at the beginning, and then you get those kind of
more worldly instruments,
mid-tempo and like that little like hints of industrial stuff, and then at the end the beat really picks up. So as the action progresses during the game, you're going to hear those parts come in different places. So
that's another really interesting thing about dynamic audio from the composer's perspective, because it's like when you're asked, okay, well now put together the radio edit that we're going to put on an album that people can buy. then you have to sort of rearrange everything again in a new way
Yeah.
so that it will be a good sit-down listening experience.
She actually mentioned that too.
Did she?
Yeah, she was saying like.
Well, one of the
and
questions I asked her.
Yeah, Ed was asking the question like, what do you do in this situation when you're trying to release something that was originally meant to be dynamic?
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but her response was she was trying to recreate it as if somebody could still kind of like, oh yeah, I remember that. I recall
what the
this.
character's adventure was through the level and how that music would, in like an optimal path through the gameplay, what parts would come in when. So,
That's awesome. So she was thinking about this like little imaginary person character
As a
going
story,
through
yeah.
and creating it that way. That's very cool.
Yeah, so very cool stuff.
Were you gonna say something?
No, I was just going to follow up with that. I mean, you said this earlier, Ed, that he's sort of moved away from that style. I really enjoyed his work from the early Hitman games. That's actually where I got
That's
to
a good
know
point,
Jesper
yeah.
Kyd. But this is sort of coming back from that purely more orchestral style back to that more early, I guess, electronic influenced stuff. But it was a really nice blend.
It
Yeah.
was almost
was.
a mix of the two.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first time I've heard something from this composer, and I really liked how he combined the symphonic and the choral sounds with the more electronic sounds, and it almost together made them sound like something else completely. Like, we were all here listening and wondering, like, what was that? Were they doing something weird with their voice? But no, it was like actually the electronics kind of juxtaposed on top of the voices, which was really cool.
Yeah, it is.
At first, I thought the internet was having some issues and the audio skipped because of that, but no, there was actually some clear breaks in there, and it continued throughout that mid section. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Good pick.
two other fun facts about this game. Well, I don't know if they're fun facts. One of them's a fun fact.
They better be fun, now
The-
that you've said it.
The first one is that you play as a pair of brothers who are plumbers from Brooklyn. So they gave a little nod to Super Mario Brothers, even though it's completely different. It's a third-person violent shooter, but
Yeah,
you can easily be like.
Luigi, and Mario Luigi, right?
That's a
So
large
they're like,
little nod.
they're like alternate history Mario Brothers. Like what if
Oh no!
they never got sucked into the Mushroom Kingdom?
You've just seeded that idea into the internet.
Yeah, and then so
Get writing, everybody.
the other kind of speaks to maybe the mood of the entire soundtrack is that Jesper Kyd composed this music in Manhattan right after 9/11. So there was that mood of, and which kind of maybe fits with the game as America being in crisis, and he maybe took a lot of what was going on in the real world and applied it to the music that you hear here. So I think he maybe brought a lot of that out. So
Makes a lot of sense. This game was actually pretty fun. I don't remember it that well. I just remember it being third person. You run around, you have like a firefighter hat on, and
yeah, you have a squad that you can command.
yeah, that's right.
So there's a lot of cool stuff.
And
You've got a lot of good reviews.
there was a little bit of like I think when you take over areas, it's almost like capture the flag kind of thing.
Yeah, well, there's some multiplayer aspects to it too, where you can do like area commanding and King of the Hill kind of stuff.
Right,
exactly.
That's man, I probably haven't played that since it came out. So
Yeah.
and I played on GameCube. I think it was released on all platforms, right?
Yep.
Cool. Gene, you're up next, buddy.
So I couldn't settle on anything, so I just picked a track I've been listening to a lot, which is from the game Night Arms. It's called Last Drive by Toshiya Yamanaka. It's a really great track. He's one of these underrated composers that we talk about on the show a lot that really deserves a lot more credit. Very active in the late 80s, early 90s. Very strong FM synthesis work. If you heard us talk at the library, you'll know that we really love talking about FM synthesis.
I think everybody here loves FM synthesis to some degree.
Could you explain what FM synthesis is? I'm just kidding.
I will be here all night long. Awesome. Let's take a listen, and we'll be right back.
That was Last Drive from Night Arms, the Hyblid Framer by Toshiya Yamanaka. Love that track. It's just some amazing synth work.
Oh, so good.
So good.
Yeah. This is
Okay, it was so good. I'll just agree with you.
it's so good. It's so good.
We're at a loss for words.
So good.
So I just, as a little history, I shared the intro track from this game on an old episode of Pixel Tunes Radio. It was like episode 38 or something, where I did a whole feature on the X68000. And as I was telling you while we were listening to this, the intro track to this game is called One Voice in the Cosmic Fugue, and it's like literally one of my favorite FM tracks of all time.
And this is the ending
and
track.
the ending track, it's a great kind of pairing to the original opening theme, because this one has more of an emotional, kind of a sadder component to it. Like, everything's done, it's time to go home. I've never beaten this game, so I've never seen the ending before, but it really feels like the hero lost a lot in the process as he went through this game, and there's kind of that undertone of melancholy with that really kind of sad kind of guitar sound on the FM.
Torn apart. You know, I like this composer because there's a lot of and especially in the soundtrack too, because there's a lot of those really kind of abrupt stops. It's got those jazzy stops to it where it's like it gives a lot of breathing room to the next note. But good soundtrack.
Yeah, no, it is a good game, but it's got some funky elements to it. So there's side-scrolling shooting elements, but then you also fly into the screen and shoot, kind of similar to that Falzion game that you did, the disc system game. But then there's the camera will flip around and you'll fly like into the screen and shoot enemies that are coming at you. But it's like, you know, it's all sprite-based, so it's really hard to tell where things are in relation to your ship. So those elements made it really difficult to play in an emulator.
So I've never played the game, but this is one of those composers where there's a short list of composers who I discovered through this community, and it's really surprising to me that with the quality of their stuff, they just don't really get that much attention. I mean, Takeshi Abo is another one that I really love to talk about. Same kind of thing. It's like Yuzo Koshiro light, but almost as good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really amazing, but only the people in our community really know, where everybody grew up playing Streets of Rage or, you know, some of these other games.
That's the best thing. That's the best comparison I've ever heard.
Diet Koshiro?
Yeah, Yuzo Koshiro Light. Diet Koshiro.
I've never
But
played.
tastes just as good.
I've never
good, like,
played
yes,
any of
Koshiro
Yamanaka's
Zero.
games. So I've never played any
my
of
God,
Yamanaka's
Koshiro
games,
Zero.
but I've probably listened to most of the soundtracks that he's done at this point. And what's really kind of odd is every game that he's done, if it was a port, he just threw out the soundtrack and did a whole new one by himself. He did a version of Prince of Persia, totally new, brand new, excellent soundtrack. I think it was for the Super Famicom.
Nice.
You know, it's just like, it's sort of this weird, almost undiscovered pocket of video game music for me, so it's been really cool.
Well, I was kind of curious. You said you've been listening to it a lot recently, Gene. Why? Why? What happened?
So whenever I'm working, I need something that's really mellow, and FM music usually, if it's really good, has these kind of warm, mellow, digital sounds. You know, I grew up listening to a lot of that stuff.
I'm there with you.
You know, I talk about this a lot. I grew up with an ad-lib sound card, so that was kind of the sound of my childhood. So hearing good FM music is sort of a bit nostalgic, even if I've never played the game, even if I didn't grow up with that particular soundtrack. It's very easy to work to, and he's got a lot of these lengthy soundtracks, so put it on, it covers my entire workday.
I noticed when Gene and I have some work to do on the podcast, I notice more tracks coming from him to me in our chat room, usually because he's like putting off what he should be doing. I'm like, Gene, hey, we got to work on our slides tonight or something like that. And I'm just like, hey man, I'm really digging this soundtrack. Just take a listen real quick. Anyways, yeah, good stuff. You guys ready to move on?
I think you skipped Michelle, actually.
Oh, Michelle?
I can go next.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Okay. I picked Rainbow Road from Mario Kart N64. And I picked this one. I wanted to go a bit nostalgic with this pick. This game came out probably when I was in middle school, around that time, and I just remember playing it with friends, and we're here in DC with friends, and so that's what made me think of it, something fun that I used to do with a group. So here it is. Okay, that was Rainbow Road from Mario Kart N64 and composed by...
Who's got the composer?
Yep.
That was
Kenta
Kenta Nagata.
Nagata, yeah.
Cool.
In Nagata Davida.
Thank you guys.
And Nevada.
I don't think that's the title of it.
No.
Nevada.
So what's Mario Kart? I've never heard.
Oh, God.
Well, Mario Kart is...
Such a fun game. I mean, I remember when my friends would get together and we'd play this. I mean, this was like one of the only games I had. So when everyone came over, we played this. And, I just remember those tournaments. Everyone would look forward to Rainbow Road. It was like you had to get through the first ones just so you could get to this one. And then it was like, oh my god, it's the rainbow level. And it was just magical. So fun.
Wow. See, in my experience, most people that like Mario Kart 64 hate Rainbow Road because it's a challenging track to say the least.
See, I used to think I was so good at Mario Kart that I was like, I can only play Rainbow Road. That's everything else is too easy.
I mean, I just liked it because it was rainbow.
See, so my experience is I played Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, and I just hated the 64, much to the chagrin of many of my friends. So I skipped right over to Mario Kart Wii, which I loved. So now whenever I play Mario Kart 64, it's like this weird foreign, because it is so much different from the game that came before and after it.
Fair enough.
So, but I've played the Mario Kart Wii version of Rainbow Road 64 because they recreated it, so it's fun.
Yeah,
it's hard.
We used to play this a lot 4-player, and so I kind of align with what you're saying there. Like we played this, it was this and GoldenEye pretty much the multiplayer games that we really got into. But this is a great soundtrack. I think the instruments are kind of silly standard Nintendo samples, so it's high quality sounding, but the instruments are all very goofy. I like that about Nintendo stuff though, even though it maybe in another game it just wouldn't work as well. But I remember I was sick when I had this game. I think it had just come out, and I was legitimately sick. I had to stay home, and I played this, but I was feeling too ill to actually race. So I remember just driving backwards and trying to drive up the hills and find where I could glitch through walls, and I spent so much time doing that. Of course, I couldn't really find any, but that was the memory I have of Mario Kart 64. It's my best memories of it.
I like the battle, too.
Oh, the battle was so fun.
With the balloons.
Yeah, and they kept that from 64 on.
Yeah.
That was even in the Super Nintendo version, right?
No, I don't think so.
No, it was.
It was. It's even
Deluxe.
Yeah, it's in Mario Kart Deluxe or
They've
Mario
kept
Kart
that
8,
in.
so
They've kept that in.
it's one of the staples. As far as the music goes for this soundtrack, a lot of the other music in the game is very cartoony sounding, and a lot of the percussion is kind of like bongo-y and kind of staccato, but this one just has this really dancey beat that fills out the sound of the track, and it sounds really different from a lot of the other stuff on the Mario Kart 64 soundtrack.
I've always liked the beach music of Mario Kart 64.
Yeah.
Or of all the Mario Karts, actually.
It's weird that's always been
And the
the
Bowser
most popular Mario Kart music, because even in Mario Kart or Super Mario Kart, whenever I think of the Mario Kart soundtrack, it's all whistles
that
and
song comes
island
up.
beats, and it's really cool how it's weird how beach music is associated with a kart racing game, but that's
Yeah, I feel
that's
like
how it
Rainbow
works.
Road is the track that is sort of iconic for the Mario Kart series. I mean, it's the one melody that I think of when I'm thinking about the Mario Kart games.
That's what I was going to say, is I think what makes this track special is it's so melodic.
Yes, it's extremely
so
memorable, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember the what was it? Moo Moo Mesa? The
Yes,
yes,
the farm.
The farm one.
Yep.
Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
dun 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 dun?
Oh,
dun?
yeah. Mhm.
Is that the one?
Yeah, and then they remixed that several times because that stage has been in Mario Kart Wii and 8, I think, as well.
And
So.
you hit the cows, those cow beetles.
So I got two things to say. Number one, I unironically love the sounds that we were talking about, the quote-unquote goofy Nintendo sounds, because I loved my Sound Blaster growing up so much, and I feel like they sound similar. So I don't actually hear it as goofy, although I get what you're saying. We were talking earlier about having one of those, Casio-tone keyboards, or the, I forget what the one that I got, the brand was, but it was from Radio Shack, the realistic keyboard. So I do really love that sound, but also I hear you, Michelle, on the friend thing with this game, because for some reason, among my friends growing up, with the earlier systems, like the 8-bit and 16-bit, we had a lot of repeat games among us, but when we hit the N64, everybody had 1 or 2 games and they were all different. So you'd get really excited about going to Caitlin's house to play Mario 64, or going to Mary A's house so you could play Pokemon Stadium or something. And so I also have those fond memories of everybody bringing their own controller that was differently colored, and then plugging it all in and playing, the original Smash or something like that. So
Nice.
totally.
I had some friends that had the same color joystick or the same color controller as me.
Oh, no.
And yeah, I know it was really bad. And I said, no, yours was the one that had the worst joystick. Yours is the one that had more crap in the joystick.
It was dirtier.
Yeah, yours is dirty. This is definitely not mine.
Did this friendship survive?
Well, no, he admitted it. His is pretty gross.
Oh, okay.
So yes.
Doesn't wash his hands before playing the game.
Yeah, I think
Oh, no.
exactly.
Eating chips
I had
and-
some of those friends. Yeah, didn't
Yeah.
wash their hands, and they would just be like nasty, and like you could see the imprint of where their hand would be. Oh,
Just make sure they used their own controllers and didn't borrow yours.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Anyways, great track. Let's move on to I'm next, I guess.
You're next.
So this is a track that I picked. Actually, this is a track that Ed picked for me.
Inadvertently.
Yeah, inadvertently. I was listening to this in the car, and I was like, you know what? This would be a fun one to have on an episode. I like the soundtrack. It's Ginga Fukei Densetsu from the PC Engine CD, and this is composed by T's Music. So let's take a listen. All right, that was stage 1 from Ginga Fukei Densetsu, composed by T's Music. I picked this track. I was in the car, and when I hear something I like, I'll take a screenshot because it's the easiest way to just make this mental note. And I'll go through my screenshots, like randomly during the day, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this track, and I'll write it down, and I'll maybe like learn about. I'll look it up and see if I can find anything about the composer or about the gameplay. I had this game kind of in my back pocket for a long time because I really like the soundtrack. It's rocking. T's Music, everything they do is so killer.
Have you played this game before, or do you know
I
anything
have
about
played
it?
this game before. It's I think it's a side-scrolling. No, it's a
horizontal vertical
shooter.
But it uses the Arcade System 3 card for the PC and CD-ROM.
Right.
It's amazing. I'm lucky enough that when I got my PC and CD, I happened to get a System 3 card with it because they're really expensive now.
Right.
And I might have found a CDR that was blank, and I happened to throw it into my CD system, and it happened to have this game on it. So, but it uses extra RAM in that System 3 card, and you would think that this was maybe more of like a Neo Geo game than a TurboGrafx.
It looks gorgeous,
mind blowing.
It looks gorgeous, and it's a lot of fun, and it's one of the better. I would say one of the better shooters on the system.
Or the best.
Well,
I don't know, because there's Zonk, and there are a lot of good
there's a lot of
on
good
that
ones,
system.
yeah.
Listeners, weigh in the comments section. Is it the best or only one of the best?
I'm sure we'll have a lot of opinions on
Or
shooters.
don't. It is. No, I'm just kidding. No, so T's Music, they always impress me just every time. And you can always pick out a T's Music track. You can hear it, especially if it's PC Engine or PC Engine CD. You can just in the back of your mind, this is T's Music.
Yeah, Lords of Thunder. I think it's more in the production than the sound a lot because this has more instruments than like the Lords of Thunder soundtrack. Well, that's more like straight rock. But this has a lot more like there's wah guitars in there. Like I've never heard that from a T's Music.
Their
before.
production is incredible,
stuff.
and they're still around. They still do stuff.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, this track it was random in the sense that Ed rolled the dice for me, but I'd been wanting to play for a long time.
Awesome.
Gene, any thoughts? Want to move on?
It's super self-indulgent in the best way possible.
Oh, I know.
It's just like over the top, just like the Lords of Thunder soundtrack. I mean, it's
exactly
just
like it.
We were making all sorts of comments like, oh, your hair is flowing behind your head, you're wearing, fingerless gloves, you're playing on the guitar to the best of your ability, lightning striking in the background. I mean, all of these mental images are going by, and it's just hair metal encapsulated, right? Really.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. It's a good way to put it. Yeah. It's just so cool.
Super cool.
Super cool.
Super 80s, super cool.
All right. So do we have who's Emily's next? That's right. I was waiting.
One.
The reason why we had to have Emily last is because nobody wanted to follow her amazing tracks.
Well, it is an amazing track.
It is an amazing track. Because if it sucks,
I know,
we're just
right?
going to cut this one out.
We're going to come back on after the track to just awkward silence.
Yeah, I'm going to just cut your voice out of each part of each track.
Editing me out of the family photo. So, actually, coincidentally, this track has a lot to do with dynamic audio in video games, which is what this whole event at the Library of Congress was all about. I did not do that on purpose, it's just a happy coincidence. We're going to be listening to a track from the indie game Wandersong, and this is called Dreamscape, and it was composed by A Shell in the Pit. All right, you just heard Dreamscape from Wandersong by A Shell in the Pit. And I can't stop thinking about this game. I've watched a very good friend of mine play through it. His name is Bogus Meat Factory. Follow him on Twitch. And I find out about indie games exclusively through friends. I never really see ads too much. And he said that he felt like he had never connected with a character as much as the character you play in this game. So just as a really brief story, you play as a bard who wants to be a hero, but isn't really too disappointed in the beginning that he's not. Actually, one of the first things you do in the game is you fail a test to be a hero, and the person testing you says, oh, that was a test to see if you're a hero, and your character says, nope, just a bard, and is totally fine with it. The entire gameplay interface is actually through singing, and this is sort of hard to describe without showing the visuals that we were watching. But essentially, as you play the game, you can use one of your analog sticks or buttons on your keyboard if you're using the computer to bring up a color wheel where each color represents a note. And as you play the game, there will be indications of notes that you should sing in certain patterns to make things happen, or you manipulate your environment through your singing, but it's very interactive that way. It's not just walking up to a door, singing a sequence, and the door opens. You actually see the gameplay used innovatively over and over and over again. It's also a very emotionally present game, which is also very nice. There's a lot of kind of nuance and depth to the feelings that the characters have. It's not just a game about necessarily being optimistic all of the time. So I really like that. I like that there's a lot of dialogue. But also it's this dynamic audio thing that we were listening to at the Library of Congress. So the track we just listened to is actually a background track of a level. And this was kind of going back to the track that you played earlier, Ed, which was recreated as a continuous experience after the fact. You're never going to hear the track exactly like that in the game, because as you go, different channels come in and fade out depending on whether you're in a cave or you're outside or what you're doing. And your bard is always in the key of the background tune, so you can sing at any time. It always sounds good. It's fun. It's just, even if you're not doing anything in particular, it's just so charming and enjoyable. So if you want to feel really good, if you want to play a game that doesn't punish you if you can't do the controls, it just allows you to try again and again, I really highly recommend this game. It's adorable, it's colorful, it's just very creative. So that's my pitch for Wandersong.
It looks like a lot of fun. And Ed, what did you say this is available on? PC,
Mac, Switch, and PS4.
I wonder how much it is. 15, 20?
Yeah, I'd say probably no more than 15, gauging by kind of game that it is. And it's geared for kids too. Like you were talking about your kids being able to play it. I think Logan, who is now in bed, would absolutely love this game. I wish he was around to see it, but I think I would definitely introduce him to this, and I think he'd have a blast playing it.
And Emily, you were saying there's over 100 tracks?
There's over 100 tracks. You can get the whole soundtrack on Bandcamp if you want. So it's just, it's music upon music upon music. There's always music going unless it's a very intense, quiet, moment. But so it's just, it is a game basically all about music. And another thing that was interesting, as I was listening through these 100 tracks to try to decide which one I was going to play, there were ones that I remembered from watching playthroughs that I thought like, oh, that's the track. That track was so emotionally powerful. I loved it. But when I listened to it on the playlist and it was missing the bard's voice and it was missing the sort of player input, it wasn't as powerful. And I don't mean that it's not a good track. I just mean there was something missing in comparison to the experience I had sitting next to somebody who was really trying to make this boss fight work. And really being invested in that. And that's something that came up in a couple of the talks that we listened to, that the interactivity of video games is what invests you in the process. And some of the cool things, one of the really kind of random cool things we saw was a giant display of Pong during the concert, where the Triforce Quartet actually played the sound effects as Pong was going. And the crowd just got so into it. I mean, we were just so excited for everybody playing, and they said, see, that's what it does when you're invested in it, because the music is happening and you're a part of this experience. It just sort of, it does something more to you than just watching people play Pong.
That's a good point, what you were saying about listening to, or hearing the track as it was being played, watching the player interact and having a different experience. Yeah, the bard's voice was there. Maybe that wasn't it. Maybe it was that element of agency
exactly.
that we saw, and losing that or taking that out of the equation really it makes the track not the full track the way you remember it, not the complete version. It has something's missing there. And so I can see what you're saying. That's a really awesome thing. You're able to tie that in directly with this talk. I mean, that wasn't intentional, but it just goes to show how games and interactivity are so important to make this medium actually thrive and continue to be the billion-dollar money-making machine that it is.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it's really important for kids' games to be this way too, because kids have so little control over their lives. They've got grown-ups telling them what to do, teachers telling them what to do, rules to live by. You can't do this wrong, or you're gonna get, scolded or whatever. And to be able to sit down in front of a TV and control not only a character, but then control the music and control the way that the music feels. It as a child, it must give you this kind of sense of power that you don't have in everyday life. And I feel that would be a really moving and memorable experience for a game that's designed for a kid.
Yep, and the Bard talks about that explicitly too. So the whole game is kind of bringing you through that whole emotion.
Yeah, when it's done well, I've always really enjoyed movies and music. Well, movies and games about music. I mean, obviously, most of these things have music in them, but playing a game where you are making the music. Like, I loved Guitaru Man when I first played it, where you sort of get the power of a rock hero and you play the songs to fight the forces of evil. It's like very literally part of the story, and I think for me, those kinds of things really engage me in the story, and I think this game probably does something similar. I haven't played it, but I am familiar with A Shell in the Pit from his work on,
Rogue Legacy?
Rogue Legacy, which I played quite a lot. It's a great game.
That is a good soundtrack.
And a lot of his music has this sort of heroic but playful tone to it, especially in Rogue Legacy, and I picked up on that here. I haven't listened to the rest of the soundtrack, but I do want to check out more of it and maybe even check out the game.
This game looks so fun. And
Yeah, it is.
as a musician and not like an avid gamer, it just looks so fun and interesting. And I can only imagine for kids who are maybe starting to explore music and starting to learn about music in school or, on the side. This, I think, would be a really fun game for them because it kind of helps teach you like a little bit of ear training, a little bit of the notes of the scale.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think it's also like not only a fun game and like allows you some agency and kind of composing your own stuff if you're just playing around with the interface, but also gives you like a little bit of music education, which is really, really cool. And it's just a beautiful looking game and a beautiful sounding game. Looks really cool.
Yeah. So, and the game is just Dreamscape, not Dreamscapes. Dreamscape?
The track is Dreamscape, but the game is Wandersong.
Wandersong.
And I'll also say, for those who are familiar with video games, it does do a bunch of really clever subversions of tropes that don't necessarily feel forced. And I just came off of playing Undertale, and there's something similar between the two, where you'll be surprised how doing something a little bit differently will create kind of an emotional impact because of what you had expected that entire time.
I'm intrigued.
Yes, I can tell you about it later. No spoilers on the podcast, but
it looks like the game is $20 on Steam. So, would you say it's worth $20?
I would say it's absolutely worth $20.
There you have it.
Beautiful.
Now, is there anything else we want to say before we wrap up the show? Comments?
It's hard to wrap up a show. It's hard to wrap this up, right? Like we don't get this opportunity much, and so like I've every time we play a track, I'm dreading that much more that we're gonna have to end this.
Yeah,
it's already 12:30 at night, and so I think I'm still on West Coast time, so I'm all right. But you guys must be like ready to pass out.
I just want to say from my perspective that I've spent a lot of time recording with Bryan across the country via Skype, and now I'm sitting right across the table from him.
It's a very odd thing.
It's very awesome and very familiar at the same time. Yeah. And Gene was just a guest on the VGMBassy. We did a remote recording, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And that was great to be with him. And Emily and I have been very good friends forever. And we've done a lot
since the beginning of time.
Since the beginning of time.
And I've listened to Emily's old show, and I've listened to her new stuff. I've watched her on Twitter. I feel like I know her, even though we don't really talk. Like,
Common phenomenon among podcasters and audience members
I was
too.
gonna say one of the fun things about this show and what we do is that I've met all of these folks, Emily, Ed, Rob, and Pernell, and actually meeting them in person, it's like I've heard your podcast so much, I feel like I've already met you, and I think that's what really helps. And having met most of these folks for the first time, it was like there was no awkward period of introduction. It's like, oh, hey, I've listened to your show. I like your stuff. How are you doing? Yeah, exactly.
The only thing weird is like, oh, you're shorter or taller than I thought you'd be. It's like...
I didn't see the whole version of you in the photo, so you're like a foot taller than I thought. Pernell's case.
I was like, oh my god, Pernell, you're touching the ceiling.
That
dude.
was
like,
so funny that I heard one of you yell that down here because that's the first thing that I said the first time I met him. When he walked into Ed's basement, he was hitting the ceiling. I was like, oh my god, you are huge.
Oh, and that's exactly what I said.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like, whoa.
He was
Dude,
just
you're huge.
I wish we had that picture of him just casually leaning on the top of the refrigerator.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was a bookcase or something.
Also that, we all have this VGM community. We all have shows that coexist so well because we all kind of have a different niche. Even though we have a relatively small niche that we are talking about to begin with, we all approach video game music from a different direction.
We kind of had to talk about this, last night?
Yeah, we were in the car. I think you said a niche of a niche.
Yeah, well, no, but there was another thing, too. It's like, we all are doing video game music podcasts, right? But we all have our own spin on the way we do it. We've said this in Facebook posts and other stuff, but I think it just made sense. Like, we all have, a way we like to present this material, and it doesn't really matter how we do it. We all like to do it a certain way, and I think every way is really, really special. That's where you're going with it.
Exactly, yeah, and it's sometimes not even by design. It's just our personalities coming through in our recordings, and so I hope to the VGM podcast listening audience that they appreciate all of the different values that we bring to these shows, and that and as a podcaster that we appreciate the audience. There being so much cross-pollination between all these shows and people getting excited when we all get together as friends to share on one show. So it's just, I appreciate that so much when people are like, oh my god, I can't believe there's a crossover between, VGMBassy and Pixelated Audio. And
that's how I discovered a lot of these shows.
Yeah, for sure. So why don't we quickly, I know we kind of introduced everybody in the beginning of the show, but I know Emily has recently started a new show.
Yes.
And then Ed, you haven't been plugged on the show before, so why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your shows?
Sure. So my new show is called Sound Test Roulette, and the idea behind that came from something that Josh and I would do on our Patreon episodes and something that I do when I'm just driving in the car, which is just really randomly picking a soundtrack and then just listening to it and seeing how it goes. So in the case of the car, you just kind of don't look, you thumb through the thing and you press it and then you go and you see how it works out. With our Patreon episodes, we would actually roll random numbers to pick from systems and games and things like that. But the idea being, sometimes you discover amazing stuff that you wouldn't discover otherwise by doing some kind of randomization process. So that's what Sound Test Roulette is all about. Every episode is 7 semi-randomized tracks, as I put it. Sometimes with a limiter, sometimes not. But not stuff that I'm necessarily curating. Sometimes I do a little curation just so that it's not terrible. But the idea being to hear things that you don't hear otherwise, and then I try to dig up a little piece of print media on each game because I think that manuals and backs of boxes and things, I always loved them, and I feel like they got lost when we were kids because we would literally lose them, and I think today, since retro games are getting so expensive, people are often just buying the cart, and so I think it's really cool to just read the back of a box and then move on to the next track. So that's what Sound Test Roulette is all about.
Awesome. And I almost called it VGM Roulette. I was close. I was so close.
I would have taken it.
And Ed.
Yeah, so I have a new-ish show. We're already getting up to our 20s in our episodes. I'm calling it the VGMBassy, and I'm calling it that because I envision it as I'm your prime VGM minister, and I have an embassy in which I invite a new guest onto each show to share their own brand of video game music culture with me. So they're the VG ambassador, I'm the VGM minister. And so every episode is a different style show. We might deep dive into one particular game on one episode. We might do a lighthearted theme on another episode. We might do an episode just based off of deep nostalgia that me and my guest might have on a third episode. And then we do blind listens, which people are really, really excited about when they come out. and me and a guest will sit down and listen to a soundtrack that we've never heard before from a game that we only know the title of. And as we go through the show, we try to guess what kind of game it is, guess who the composer might be, guess what system it's from, and it's all suggested by a third party who's hiding all of this information from us. And then at the end of the show, we play like a recording or we read a statement that they've read that explains to us, what we've been listening to. And the audience just loves going through the show with us and trying to guess all the stuff about the game and listen to our theories and stuff. So there's been a lot of really cool stuff going on at VGMBassy, and we're just getting started. So I can't wait to do more stuff with VGM.
Gene's been a guest on. I have not been a guest.
We've been talking about it forever. We've got something in the works, but I don't want to spoil it just yet. But it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I do want to do another plug here for our friends who are not with us, Rob and Pernell, Rhythm and Pixels.
Rhythm and Pixels.
They had to go back. They drove up here for the event, and we didn't get a chance to record last night. Like, we were trying to all get together. This would have been even more chaotic, more fun. So just want to say thank you guys for coming out, and hopefully we'll get a chance to all sit together again and do a recording.
Yeah.
And then also, thank you to all the listeners, and especially thanks to Chris Murray, Just a Punk, who came out he cleared his schedule for the day so that he could come out for the Library of Congress, and also to...
Sorry for botching up your name, dude. I was on the spot.
And also to the Messenger, who we all know, but who was also trying to come out and couldn't. But, we appreciate that she really wanted to be here. Nothing more needs to be said about the Messenger, I feel. He's sort of this,
ubiquitous
saint.
Saint.
He's like
VGM.
the Lincoln Memorial of,
Sit there and just looks over all of us.
That's right, yes, exactly.
So I don't have much more to add because I am one of the co-hosts of the one you're listening to right now, Pixelated Audio, but I do want to say that it was an absolute pleasure to go to the Library of Congress, meet some amazing fans, talk to Winifred Phillips and Austin Wintory, see their presentation, and have that sort of weird out-of-body experience as you present the material that you've worked very hard on, and have people come up to you and say, wow, I really enjoyed your talk. It was...
Even if you didn't think it was any good.
It was a lot of work, but the content was great, and it was awesome hearing some of these other talks and seeing what we did really did fit very nicely into the series of events. So I think we do know what we're talking about more often than not.
Do you guys have any idea when that content's going to be available to the public?
3 to 4 months. That's what they told us.
All right.
To the
But
public
then it's going to be
months.
archived forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the episode or the recording that we have will be coming out very shortly. It'll be coming out, I think, right after this episode.
Very cool.
Within a week of this episode, we will have that edited and ready to go, and you'll be able to hear our talk. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time and for the rest of this evening to chat video game music with us. I mean, it's not like we had to pull your arm or anything to do it. I had a great time. Thank you so much, and check out the other podcasts from the other hosts that you heard tonight. And we'll see you guys in another week for the Library of Congress talk.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.